Mr. Rosenthal? Mr. Rosen?
Here, I'll text him.
I got it.
You got it?
You're in the boardroom.
Mr. Rosenthal? Will you vote by show of hand, please?
No, just him.
Here. Let's go ahead and just, so Mr. Rosenthal hears this again, maybe we should say this again, Mrs. James, I'm sorry.
Mr. Rosenthal, I made a motion that the Board of Trustees approve Marta Rivas to the position of elementary school principal.
All right. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on. Mrs. James.
There they are.
There we go. Okay. Mr. Rice.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve Matthew Antignolo to the position of Director of Child Nutrition.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. Tossan. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Mr. Rosenthal, please vote by show of hand. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Rice.
Mr. President, I move the Board rescind its action of April 15th, 2019, specifying that the Board conduct the non-renewal hearing for employee Marcus Castile, approve use of the process established under Subchapter F of Chapter 21 of the Texas Education Code, and authorize the superintendent to provide notice to Marcus Castile of the Board's action.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. Tossan. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Rice, is that it?
That's it.
All right, Mrs. Haliger.
I move the Board of Trustees approve Terrence Thomas to the position of Director of Facilities Operations.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Haliger and a second by Mrs. James. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. The motion passes unanimously. Mrs. Tossan.
Yes, sir. I move the Board of Trustees delegate authority to the superintendent to appoint and approve a contract for employment for elementary principal for the 2019-20 school year, and further move that this delegation of authority expire on May 20th, 2019.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Tossan and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Please, did everyone vote? Motion passes unanimously. Mrs. Tossan, is that it? All right. Moving on, we will now have our board member reports. Mrs. Haliger.
Thank you. For the month of May, the board has been busy with the Ridgemont Early Literacy Center Career Day, TASA Facilities Committee meeting, Fort Bend Chamber Investments in Youth Luncheon, Middle School Choir Region Concert, the BABA Awards, the Go Public Gulf Coast meetings, the board self-evaluation, the April Shat meeting, Star Award for Dr. Dupree at the University of Houston, Policy Committee meeting, Rita Drayback Elementary induction, a staff service banquet, spring signing day for the athletics department, Mission West Elementary Career Day, Board Leadership Academy graduation, Oyster Creek Elementary Profile graduate recognitions, Teacher of the Year awards banquet.
Thank you, Mrs. Haliger. We will now consider our consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move to approve the consent agenda items 11A, B, C, in their entirety as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. James. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have our action item. Consider approval of Gibson Consulting Group to perform the 2019-20 internal audits. May I
Mr.
have a, go ahead.
Mr. President, I move to approve action item 12A1 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Tossan and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, for my clarity, we are only voting on the Gibson Consulting Group to perform the audits, or are we also voting on the recommendation that was presented by the committee, the audit committee?
Yes, the recommendation
Recommendation, right?
from the audit committee.
Okay, so, okay. I still strongly, I agree with the work that the audit committee has done. I just do not agree with the recommendations, the three. I think I have one that I would do differently from what was recommended by the committee. So if I have to vote on this whole three in entirety, then I would have to probably vote against it. Not thought, yeah.
All right, thank you. Mrs. James?
I was noticing that the information security was listed as a pretty high priority, and I wondered if that was considered by the board, or by the committee at all, that area, and where that falls in the priorities.
Yes, it was considered a high priority, so I was going to pull up. What we did first was after having the conversation and reviewing what was presented to us in the risk assessment, we asked Gibson to provide us a price quote for the work to be done, including several audits. And what we did after that, we had several that we thought were high priority, which included that one. It included, we spoke at length about the gifted and talented audit. There were several that were high priority to us. In the end, we weighed pros and cons of prices, what overlap there might be for engaging staff, and we asked them to be very specific in the quotes they gave us where staff would have overlap and because we didn't want to overburden staff. And then we went through after that and as a committee decided which ones we thought would be our top three. So yes, to answer your question, that was another one that was at the top of our list. And as a committee, and I don't know who's going to be on the committee next year, but as a committee, one of the things that we decided was to bring up the other audits, such as the two that you ladies brought up, to make those a priority for next year. So that's where we landed on that. And again, I wanted to reiterate to Ms. Helliger that that GT really was one we discussed at length. It was a high priority for us, as was the one you brought up, Ms. James, the information security.
Thank you both. Please vote. Motion passes. Next, we will review our future board meeting agenda items. Dr. Dupree?
Yes, sir. As you've just called a meeting for the 3rd of June, that will be our next meeting where we'll do the public budget hearing and consider further the TRE. And then also within June, we'll have the regular workshop at which we'll present the community-based accountability system framework that we've been working on this year and report out on that pilot, as well as give a bond program update for the 14 and 18 bond programs, including a preview of the new dashboard on the website. We're also going to be looking at budget in June, transportation hazardous routes, and a number of bond program projects. And you can see there's also a number of updates that we'll be providing as we start planning out the next 6 to 9 months of work.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned. But hang tight, because we're about to have another one. We're not done yet. The time is 8:42 p.m., and this meeting is called to order. A quorum is present as required by the Texas Election Code, Section 67.004A, and notice of this meeting has been posted in the time and manner required by law. First up is our first action item. We're going to canvass the returns and declare the results of the May 4th, 2019 trustee election. For trustee position number 3, Ashish Argwal had 2,647 votes. Sam Papuri had 1,228 votes. Mr. Jim Rice had 7,854 votes. And Afshi Charania had 4,424 votes. Mr. Rice obviously won that election. For trustee position number 7, Dave Rosenthal had 6,726 votes. Monica Riley with 2,710 votes. Nadine Skinner with 2,113 votes. Holland Paulson with 741. Rudy Sutherland Jr., 424. Christine Mitchie with 846. And Farrell Bonner with 1,137 votes, with Mr. Dave Rosenthal winning that election. Our last but not least, trustee position number 5. Trustee position number 5, Miss, wait a second here. Christian Summer with 2,394 votes. Lily Lamb with 3,425 votes. Jason Dobrolecki with 2,676 votes. Allison Drew with 3,681 votes. And Pam Sutherland, 1,707 votes, with Mrs. Allison Drew winning that election. All right. Next, we will administer oath of office to newly elected trustees. First, go ahead. Actually, we do have to vote on that. Do we have discussion on the election results?
So I'll make a
I'm
motion.
sorry, yeah. May I have a motion on the election results? Excuse me.
I'll make a motion to approve action item 2A as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Tossan and a second by Mrs. Haliger. Do we have discussion?
Yes.
Harry?
Congratulations to all the winners.
Yes, congratulations. Hearing none, please vote. Dave, you vote by show of hand. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so next we will administer our oath of office to newly elected trustees. Mrs. Allison Drew has someone that is going to swear her in, but is she here? She's here. All right, just in enough time. So, Mrs. Allison Drew, you want to come up here, please? Yep. Will you? Yes, ma'am. Will you have, I'm sorry, I don't know her last name. Is it Julie? Mrs. Julie Matthew, if you please come to the front. Yes, ma'am.
Almost as right before my own English teacher. Gives me
Good, take your time. It's okay.
All right. Good evening, everyone. All right, repeat after me. I
Please raise your.
name. Yes, right here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right
Yeah.
hand.
Right hand, raise my right hand.
Okay. Do solemnly swear
I,
Your
Allison
name?
Drew, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the duties of the office
execute the duties of the office
of Fort Bend County Independent School District, of Fort Bend Independent School District,
of Fort Bend Independent School District,
trustee position 5
trustee position 5
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve,
preserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you.
Mr. Rice is going to join us in the front here. Mr. Rozier.
I state your name,
I, Jim Rice,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Fort Bend Independent School District Trustee Position 3
of Fort Bend Independent School District, position number 3,
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Did we want to get any pictures before we go back to closed session, or? I didn't know, but Mr. Rice has his family here. Mr. Rice, do you want to take any pictures with your family before we go back? Or introduce your family, please? And Mrs. Drew will do that next.
I'm not sure they're up for pictures, but I am joined by my wife, Mary, and my youngest son, Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Mrs. Drew?
I'm joined by my husband, Jim, and my set of twins, Jace and Jade.
Congratulations to you both. I'm excited about our team, and what's that? Oh, Mr. Rosenthal. Oh, yeah. Mr. Rosenthal, we're going to swear in when he gets back in town in the next few days. So we want to congratulate Mr. Rosenthal as well on his victory, and we look forward to our future as a team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. All right. We will now convene in closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.074, to discuss selection of board officers for the 2019-20 year. We will now convene in closed session.